On July 14th, word broke that Lashana Lynch of Captain Marvel fame will be taking on the mantle of 007 in the upcoming, as of yet untitled, James Bond 25. If you've watched earlier Midnight's Edge videos on the matter, this should come as no huge surprise, because already back in April, we reported on the rumors that Daniel Craig's James Bond would retire, and a female agent take over the 007 handle. Well, they're not rumors anymore. Joining me to discuss that is, as always, Tom and Rob.
Hello.
Hello.
Today, we are also joined by a very special guest who also happens to be a James Bond aficionado, Robert Meyer Burnett.
Oh, it's great to be back here, and you don't have to twist my arm to talk about James Bond. I've loved the Bond series my entire life, and look, I even would argue that there's probably just as many, if not more, mediocre Bond films than there are great Bond movies. But I love the franchise as a whole, for warts and all. Like I don't like A View to a Kill. I don't like License to Kill. I don't like Man with a Golden Gun very much, or Diamonds Are Forever. But I love them at the same time. So I'm just a huge James Bond fanatic.
Now, James Bond is a product of the Cold War, and in his original literary incarnation, as well as in the earlier movies. He displayed attitudes in general, and towards women in particular, which may no longer be acceptable by modern standards. And that certainly ties in with having Phoebe Waller-Bridge rewrite the movie into its current form. Do you have any thoughts on that? Who is James Bond, and who should he be?
Bond is a sensualist. He drinks great champagne at specific temperatures so it tastes the best. He only eats the greatest caviar. The guy knows he only wears the best suits, and frankly, he only wants to sleep with the world's most beautiful women. I think what's really strange about the world that we live in is that somehow we, like men, are supposed to not admit that we get turned on by hot women. Like that literally has become something that we're not supposed to do. Well, let me tell you, I don't want to live in that world. I mean, I love hot women, and I grew up as a kid learning a lot about women from the James Bond franchise. Between James Kirk and James Bond, there was a lot of education going on. And now, what does M say to Bond when Pierce Brosnan's introduced? She says, and it was great, she goes, "You're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur. You're a relic from the Cold War." And it's really interesting that the Bond franchise for at least 20 years has tried to apologize for the franchise itself. That's when Judi Dench says that, when M says that in GoldenEye, she's basically saying, okay, we understand the world is changing, and your catting ways and the way you go through women. There's the scene in Goldfinger in the pre-title sequence where Bond is making out with this belly dancer, and he sees a thug reflected in her eye that's creeping up behind him that's going to crack him in the head. And Bond, instead of taking the blow, throws the woman in the way, and the thug smashes her and knocks her out. I mean, Bond was if that scene were in a movie today, I mean, can you imagine what the people would scream and yell? But in Bond's
it would be a hate crime.
Yeah, and in Bond's world, though, everybody's disposable. He has a license to kill. Like, his job is to succeed in his mission. This franchise, in trying to be, it's like what's happened with Bond is what's happened with Star Trek. They're trying to turn it into something that it isn't. Mm-hmm. And I think what's fascinating to me is it doesn't work. I want to watch a Bond who is great at his job, is ruthlessly will eliminate anyone that gets in the way of what he's supposed to do, and wins in the end. He's a fantasy spy character. And I don't think that he needs to. They keep trying to make him relevant. I think the best way to make a Bond film is just make him the way Sean Connery was early on in our day and age, because that would be revolutionary.
Yeah. Well, you said actually about he's good at his job. That is the thing I think a lot of people are missing. He's not Superman. He's not Batman. He's not trying to make the world a better place. This is his job. This is his 9 to 5. He was recruited into the Secret Service, MI6, out of the British Navy because they saw something in him that they could develop. He's not trying to make the world a better place. He's trying to preserve the status quo and maintain the last remnants of the British Empire. Again, this is his 9 to 5, and trying to make it personal, trying to make it some sort of statement is completely missing the point. I understand that there's a certain amount of suspension of disbelief when it comes to these movies, because if you think about it, he's a pretty lousy spy. What spy would be driving a $200,000 sports car and blowing everything up? Really, if you think about it,
right?
A spy's job is to maintain a low profile. And you kind of have to think of him as a blunt object. He's the guy that, remember what he said in was it Thunderball? He goes, "What do you do, for a living, Mr. Bond?" "I'm a licensed troubleshooter."
Right.
That pretty much describes what he does, really. And that's what I'd like to see the series get back to.
Maybe we should start to get on the real reason why I think we've gathered here today. Andre, did you want to kind of bring in the main topic at hand here? Or?
Yes, the reason we are here today is to discuss the recent reports that, courtesy of the makeover from Phoebe Waller-Bridge of Fleabag, Killing Eve, and Star Wars A Solo Droid fame, Bond 25 will see the introduction of a new 007. A female 007, and a black female at that. No doubt to the delight of those who wanted Idris Elba for the role. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay, first of all, we've seen 007 or 00s die in Bond films, like at the beginning of Live and Let Die. And then, of course, we met a 00 who went bad, Alex Trevelyan, in GoldenEye. So in the film, they announced that James Bond is retired. So to me, my mind, I was always under the impression, especially after, reporting what you guys reported, I figured that they were going to have some kind of other 007 in the movie. Because if Bond retired, I assumed this is my own. I have no knowledge of this at all. This is in my own thought process and way of thinking that the 00 numbers, since they're replaced, when they die or age out or whatever, that they have to assign that number to someone else. And I would just assume that there was going to be another 007 in the movie. And from the reporting in the British tabloids today, it says at the beginning of the film, M says, "Come in, 007." And then we have Lashana Lynch walk in playing the new 007. Now, I actually like this idea. I wish that I didn't know this. I wish I could have seen it in the movie itself, because I think that would have been pretty cool. And I like the idea of, look, we've seen Bond teamed up with Anya Amasova in Spy Who Loved Me. She was his Russian counterpart. They were equals, as much as you could have a female equal to James Bond in a 1977 movie, but they were clearly as smart as one another. I mean, she was still a woman, obviously, and there was times when Bond had to have the edge on her and save her life and things like that, like from Jaws. But it was, and then of course we saw Michelle Yeoh. He teamed up with Michelle Yeoh in Tomorrow Never Dies. So the idea of having women in Bond films that are of equal stature to James Bond is not something that is foreign to the franchise. So I think if this were 10 years ago and you did a movie about Bond retiring, nobody would care. But now, in the wake of where we're at, I think it's kind of silly. I mean, obviously the producers saw something in her. She probably gave a kick-ass audition. I like the fact that it changes up the franchise. I enjoy it. I suspect she's going to get killed, and that's why Bond is either going to work with her for a while, or maybe they'll keep her, depending on how, if her character kicks ass. Look, I've always liked female spies. I liked Atomic Blonde. I love La Femme Nikita. I love the British TV series. I was talking about this earlier, Spooks, that had male and female agents, and that was about their domestic service, MI5. and they constantly killed people in that show. The principal characters were frequently killed in the line of duty, and they were replaced. But so I think it's cool. I think it's a way to change up the franchise. I do think it smacks a little bit of, again, pandering to the times, which I think is annoying that the franchise is continuing to do that, because I think if anything needs to be go back to its roots, let's bring back the sexist, misogynist dinosaur, because in our modern age, we need these people because they're the only people that can save the world. If we have to sit around and wait for everybody who's bitching and moaning and complaining about equality and representation, that's fine. But there's a nuclear weapon that's going to go off, or in the case of Rami Malek, some kind of genetic, biologically engineered, weaponized, whatever it is. And you know what? You can talk about representation and equality till you're blue in the face or until the world ends. We need the sexist, misogynist dinosaur of James Bond's ilk to save us. That's what I think.
I don't have much more to add to that. I mean, again, my problem, much like you, my problem is, why are they doing this? I saw Captain Marvel. I didn't like Lashana Lynch in Captain Marvel. Yeah, the joke for me is last time I saw anything that wooden, I was in Home Depot. I mean, jeez, that goes for everything about that movie. But
well, my problem was they didn't seem like they were friends. They just seemed like they were acting like they were friends.
Okay,
should be said though, that wasn't her fault. That was we don't know if that's her acting or if it's the direction. I'm inclined to believe that. But moving on.
All right, well, that's neither here nor there for the time being. But like I said, I mean, the idea of you have an agent coming, he comes in, and if he's training a new agent, that's cool. Or this idea that there's no getting out for you. That is kind of an interesting idea. But again, I mean, are they going to, like we were saying before, it seems like the franchise is trying to apologize for itself now.
Right.
And is this another way that they're trying to do? Is this their way of trying to correct that, or trying to overcorrect that? And I can't help but think that bringing in Phoebe, okay, if this turns out to be good, fine, great. I will freely admit, okay, this was good idea, whatever, blah blah blah. If it turns out to be bad, a lot of the blame is going to be heaped on Phoebe Waller-Bridge, because she's the one they brought in to do this. I hate putting it all on her, but this is
I'm not so sure about. I don't think that normies know that.
Also, I mean, I love Killing Eve, and the how do you pronounce her name? I always say Villanelle. It's not Villanelle. The character in the Killing Eve is based on a series of novels, but I love the portrayal of the characters in Killing Eve, and I think that, you know, from what I understand, they brought they brought her in to get some of that kind of Villanelle. That's her name, Villanelle. The Villanelle novels is what Killing Eve is based on, and Villanelle is this a completely amoral Russian agent who takes total joy in whether it's sex or killing. I mean, it's a great character. And I could see, because Daniel Craig especially, I as was reported, wanted her to come in. And I could see that anybody who created or brought Villanelle to the screen would want some of that to rub off in the Bond franchise. And then even the relationship that Villanelle has with Sandra Oh, who's chasing her. So I actually thought that was a pretty good hire. Like, I was a fan of that, because both Fleabag and Killing Eve are great shows, and I'm all about the writing. And I think, you know, Bond has always been when they have good scripts, they're great movies, but it's always the writing that torpedoes the franchise. And I think bringing her in was actually a good thing to do, because especially Villanelle is not a politically correct character in the least. You know, she's completely amoral and psychopathic. And I love her so much. I mean, she's the girl you'd dream of dating if she wasn't going to kill you.
She's essentially like a praying mantis, really. Yeah.
Yes. So great.
Yeah. For what I've seen of Killing Eve, actually, it's been. I don't watch it faithfully as you do, but a few times I've seen Killing Eve, it's been very good. But one of the things I've often noticed, though, and I call people on social media the Twitterati,
right?
Is a lot of this being done to satisfy the Twitterati and to satisfy those on social media who will get those retweets and the outspoken, the hashtag, the hashtag activists. And I do see a lot of the same things going around. It seems like they're trying to tailor this movie for those people who say, I'm not a fan, but I'm like, but if these people aren't fans to begin with, then I don't think there's much you could do to sway them. I'm not a fan. And usually those are the people that have the worst ideas. And I've seen this, they should kill Bond within the first 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, franchise over. I mean, it just seems like a very lazy kind of way to go about it.
Well, it's really interesting because the Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson, who inherited the Bond franchise from Barbara's father, Cubby, they have produced basically, it's not a female Bond, but a female-centric spy thriller series. It's a new series based on a series of books called the movie is called The Rhythm Section, and the movie is coming out next year. They haven't dropped. I know that they've test screened it, but they haven't dropped a trailer for it, and it's coming out next year. And it was directed by Reed Morano. She's a incredible cinematographer. I think it's her. It might be her directorial debut. I'm not sure about that, but The Rhythm Section is based on a novel by Mark Burnell, and Blake Lively plays the Stephanie Patrick character who gets sort of drawn into this intrigue. So in a way, the Broccoli's have already embarked. Well, Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson have already embarked on doing a female-centric action spy series. It just hasn't come out yet. Oh, I guess it says it. The IMDb says it's supposed to come out on November 22nd, 2019. But so I think. Look, and as we talked about Triple X, Michelle Yeoh's character, we've seen strong women in the Bond franchise before. Hell, even Octopussy has an army of women assassins and agents working for her. So as much as Bond gets taken to task for being a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, we have seen strong women in the franchise before throughout its history. And I think if this is done correctly, I mean, if she kicks ass, if Lashana Lynch kicks ass, it could be really cool. But, I think that anything like this does smack of sort of pandering to the idea. I mean, there's been a lot of speculation about who was going to play Bond and what would happen if we changed the race of 007 with Idris Elba, which I just think is strange because James Bond is based on a series of novels that were Cold War novels that were written by Ian Fleming. That's who James Bond is, period. It's based on and as the movies have moved away from that, it's still always going to be James Bond was a British Navy officer that was recruited by MI6, Rob, as you said. That's who Bond is. Now, like with everything else, ultimately, if you're going to go and try and change the DNA of something, you're going to ruin it. You're going to wreck it. It's going to get destroyed. And what you don't want is you don't want James Bond to be a guest star in his own movie. Now, I have no problem with a female woman of color, of any color, to be the new 007. I think that's really interesting. And if Bond is going to team up with the 00, he or assumes a mentor student relationship, that's cool. But I want to watch a movie where James Bond is front and center. That's what I want out of the Bond franchise. And I think, like you just said, Rob, it's really interesting that I don't think pandering to social norms of the day ever, because they change all the time. And I think by trying to make something that's so topical or is addressing issues that are happening now, there's nothing that immediately dates something faster. And that's what I worry about, is that the film would be compromised by decisions that are made to pander to people that, like you said, aren't even fans of the franchise to begin with. I understand that they're trying to get more people to come see Bond movies, but Bond movies have never been more successful than the last 2 that they've made. Even Spectre, that wasn't that great. Clearly, there's an audience for the Bond franchise. And I think now more than ever, we need an ass-kicking, take no prisoners, I will kill you because I have a 00 license to kill, and I will enjoy it. We need Bond more than ever now. And the last thing we need Bond to be, what the progressive left would deem you have to be woke and inclusive and all that. Because you know what? It's those people that would never save the world from an atomic bomb going off. They just won't. They'll bitch and moan and complain about how they feel terrible that a guy like James Bond is making them feel bad and making them not feel safe in their safe spaces or whatever. But you know what? The world needs James Bond. The world needs a ruthless, intelligent killer that will go places not many other people will go and do the things not many people will do. And that's what I want from a Bond movie. Mm-hmm. And he has insatiable appetites. He loves beautiful women. He likes drinking great alcohol. He likes eating good food and wearing the best suits and driving the best cars, and unapologetically does all of these things because they are awesome.
He's what every man aspires to be and what every straight woman wants to be with. So, I mean, it's fantasy. It's just like every superhero.
Yeah. But there seems like this idea now, we have to take Bond down a few pegs, make him more human. I'm like, no, you're missing the point, guys. No, it's not. We have to take him down a few pegs. I mean, he still has to be that aspirational, because without that aspirational, I mean, nothing else sort of fits into the, like you said, as soon as you start pulling on those threads, you destroy the whole thing. It comes unraveled.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, you know, even as a kid, I wanted to grow up and be James Bond. You know, and watching Star Wars. I mean, I think about 1977 when I was 10 years old. It was such a seminal year in my life because, you know, Star Wars came out, and people forget, as a 10-year-old, you could still want to grow up and be Luke Skywalker because he was a young man, or Han Solo. And that's why, you know, when George Lucas goes back and makes Anakin Skywalker a little kid in The Phantom Menace, I'm like, this guy, he doesn't get his own franchise. Because kids don't want to watch movies about other kids. Kids want to watch movies about people they can grow up and be. And when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, I'm like, I want to be James effing Bond.
Yeah.
I want to be able to meet the women he meets. I want to be able, I'd never, of course, tasted liquor, but I wanted to drink a vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. I wanted to eat beluga caviar. I wanted to be able to order Bollinger champagne at the perfect temperature. You know, I didn't even know what those things meant. I just knew that I wanted to do them.
You wanted the
confidence. You want the suave. Yeah, everything. I tell you though, like I said, it's a wish fulfillment.
We have a super chat that's kind of pertinent to the conversation from Drive-By Commentator for $20. Thank you so much. He says, I'm assuming it's a he. Sorry if it's not. I think Hollywood already knows guys are receptive to strong women. It's more about enforcing the dominant male as a cultural taboo. Also, Bond was impervious to weaponized seduction, where the modern male is not so much. That's kind of what I was saying, to a point where it was like, basically everything that Bond is, they're trying to make him not. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, and here's the thing: what the hell's wrong with seduction? You know, I mean, like it's such a weird. We live in a world where, what, men are not supposed to desire beautiful women? I mean, aside from the fact that it's biologically put in, we're hardwired for that. I want to watch my hero, you know, finding the most beautiful women in the world and sleeping with them. What's wrong with that? I mean, that's what Bond does. And as he orders beluga caviar and the best champagne that they have to offer. You know, I mean, it's really funny because in Casino Royale, which everybody loves, Bond unrepentantly sleeps with an unbelievably beautiful woman whose husband is a douchebag. And James Bond knows he's a douchebag, and that's why he's able to seduce her. He uses the fact that her husband is a douche to move right in and have his way with her. And that was awesome.
What did he say? What did he say to her? He says, "Why can't I meet nice guys?" Well, then you wouldn't need a bad man like me, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's
There's
actually very relevant to the next super chat we got from Rivers727, who sent a $5 super chat saying, I think the film is dead on arrival in China, as China would deem it Baizu. And to those who may not be aware, Baizu is Chinese for white left, and that is the prohibiting of the kind of behavior that you're describing right now, that one used to do, but not so much anymore.
Wait, come at me again. Like, you can't show seduction in movies?
no,
Basically that you can't have Bond go and seduce women and sleep with them, because that's sexist, and men are not supposed to be attracted to women.
The Baizu is the reprimanding culture that that a lot of people on the left have. You know, you're misogynist, such and such. You know, they're very turned off to that.
And that's also one of the points that was in the initial article that we referenced when we first reported about there being a new female James Bond. It was explicitly about James Bond getting a Me Too era makeover, because apparently in the movie James Bond tries to seduce this new 007, which would be Lashana Lynch, and it doesn't work.
Well, I mean, see, I think about a scene like that. I think that's actually a great scene, because, you know, Bond has forgotten the fact that if somebody's a 00, they don't get seduced. They're the seducer. You know, I mean, that's why she's a 00, is because she's as good as Bond was. And I like that idea. I think that's great. That look at Pussy Galore in Goldfinger. Now, we of course know that her sexuality wasn't directly addressed in the film, but it's sort of it's there, obviously, if you know the character and know the books and all that. But it's nice when Bond sometimes gets rebuffed. I mean, even Dr. Holly Goodhead from Moonraker, he doesn't get to take her down till the end. Take me around the world one more time, James. You know, I mean, I don't mind that. I think that, to me, that would set up a humorous scene, because you know, the whether it's a male or female 00 agent, I want to believe that the 00s are the best of the best. So if you have a female 00 agent, she has to kick ass. She has to be awesome. And if Bond is able to seduce her, I think that would compromise her character in the film. So that doesn't bother me.
Well, the other thing too, it's all part of that cat and mouse game too.
Right, of course.
Which also puts another layer on it as well.
I mean, I was pissed off when James Bond slept with Grace Jones in View to a Kill, not because of anything other than the fact that she was a bad guy. He should have killed her. She was Christopher Walken's henchman, and I'm like, she deserved to die. But, you know, I guess I'm sure it was an interesting evening for James, but I objected to that. You know, it seemed to me like Bond was a little old. He was Roger Moore was the oldest he ever was. It was his last Bond film, and he let the evil henchwoman live, and that seemed out of character for me.
And Grace Jones was supposed to be in this new film, but walked off the set when she found out that her part was not as big as she was hoping.
Yeah, which I didn't.
According to reports.
I don't know, Rob. What I was thinking about that, like, what, they're going to bring back a 70-year-old Mayday? Is she supposed to be playing the same character that she was playing in View to a Kill? How did that make any sense?
They never specifically said. I have no idea, but yeah, that struck me as kind of odd that they would.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like the whole report seems strange to me. Like, look, anybody that's going to have an actress come in, especially a pop star like Grace Jones, who's known for being prickly, you know, you can't bamboozle her to do some kind of a role. I haven't seen her interviewed about it, so I wonder the veracity of any of those reports.
We did get a $5 super chat from Captain Hare. This super chat is completely irrelevant to the discussion. I just wanted to break up the relevant ones, he says. And the reason I broke this up just a little bit is I did see a comment earlier that somebody brought up. Do you guys think, with the whole title discussion, not to take this into a little bit different direction, and the fact that Bond has been retired since the last film, as you guys put it, Because wouldn't this be Daniel Craig playing Bond for the 4th time? Isn't that like basically the record then?
The 5th time.
The 5th time would be the record? Okay.
Roger Moore.
No.
But he's played him for a period of time that's longer from the time.
Okay,
he
that's
started.
what I was kind of trying to get to. Is like, okay, so this guy's had this now, and if they wanted to like totally reboot and retwist this franchise after this last one, is which they keep talking like this is it. This is the last one with Craig, and then we're going to try something different. I mean, could you see them doing that?
What we're seeing here, that they could now be continuing the 007 series with 007 Lashana Lynch.
That's what I'm getting at, is like they're going to continue on here on out and do the Creed thing or the whatever, but not do it well, unfortunately, in this case, because to me it sounds like they're screwing the pooch. Yeah. I mean, it has nothing to do with the race of the character. It has nothing to do with the sex of the character. It's they've tried this in the news. They've tried it with Idris Elba, and the backlash has been there. It's obvious that the traditional character here should not be fucked with for any reason whatsoever. And this goes to show that Hollywood always learns the wrong damn lessons when it comes to things like Wonder Woman and everything else. Instead of learning that Wonder Woman was already a strong, established female character that's been around for 70-some years, they just learned that, oh, we got to make everything a female superhero now. You know, it's like, no, you didn't take the right lesson from that. You took the wrong lesson. And the same thing with why James Bond is so beloved and endured for so much time, is because it's from what I can gather from you guys and from what I've seen on screen from my own personal, observation, is he's never really changed. The character always stays the same. And that's why I've always said that Superman the movie is the blueprint on how to update a character. You don't mess with the main character. The main character stays the same. The world changes around them, and you adapt that character to that world. And that's what Superman the movie did. Superman doesn't change. Superman's the exact same Superman we've had since the 1940s.
Well, here's my thing. My whole thing is that if you have, I'm always about character and story. It's always, for me, I call it the Burnett axiom. Never put your universe before your characters and your story, because your universe grows out of character and story. And now, because of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, everybody wants to have these universes of characters. I mean, if Daniel Craig's going to retire, you reboot James Bond with another actor. Whether it's Game of Thrones as Richard Madden or whatever, who's in. If you haven't seen the 6-episode Bodyguard on Netflix, the BBC series Bodyguard, that Richard Madden plays an agent in, I could see him being Bond. I'm like, I read somewhere that Barbara Broccoli liked Richard Madden as Bond. I'm like, he was on screen. He played Elton John's manager recently in Rocket Man. And, I think they're going to have to reboot. James Bond is still making a lot of money. We looked at Skyfall was over $1 billion. Spectre made over $800 million. And depending on what Bond 25 is going to do, they're not going to suddenly reconceptualize the James Bond character, because the James Bond character has been making tons of money. And at the end of the day, money talks. And it's interesting. Yeah, so I think they're going to reboot the Bond franchise again with another man playing James Bond.
To come in and say, we need to change this. I mean, it's a mistake. I really do think it is a mistake. I mean, you really are tampering with something that should not be messed with. I
just will say, I think that, they are tampering with it, but I think it's just going to be a temporary thing, because the pendulum swings. And now the pendulum is at one extreme, and everything in the entertainment industry is changing because of it. But that pendulum can swing the other way. And when it does, it might swing hard and it might swing fast. And then I think many things, especially things like James Bond, might be reset to where they once were. But for right now, though, we're dealing with a pretty changed James Bond, as we've covered already.
And what's really interesting is the way our culture is going. It's almost as if, we're trying to eliminate the sensual pleasures of life. And it's very strange.
Rob's right. The next title is going to be Bond No Means No or whatever. It's getting that point. I don't understand,
Yeah, that was a joke on the critic. I don't know if you remember the critic. Dr. No Means No.
I just don't get. I don't get it. I don't. I really don't. I don't get this latest trend to up and change and uproot and totally flip flop and make everything unrecognizable from what it really was before.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Exactly.
you know, the way our culture seems to be heading, you know, no one's going to touch anybody. No one's going to have. I mean, there is first and foremost, remember, James Bond is fun. James Bond movies are fun to watch. They're fun to watch because he does things that we don't do. And if you're going to eliminate that from his character, why do I want to watch a James Bond movie? Half the reason, I mean, it's like, who's he gonna, what woman is he gonna come across now? You know, I mean, that's part of the character. And it's part of the franchise. It's why people have watched Bond movies for over 50 years. The idea that Bond is trying to seduce another 007, that's a great idea for a scene. I love this idea. I think it's great. And because I don't think Bond should be seducing or able, if there's a 007, that 007 has to be equal in every way, shape, and form. I would not want that character compromised, you know, no matter who is playing her, or if it in fact is true, which I probably think it is. I want that 007 to be kick-ass, and I don't want that 007 to compromise what I know to be 007s. As a matter of fact, I hope she has a voracious sexual appetite the same way that Bond does, because she also is in the same position as him. She should drink up life. She should be a hard drinking, hard partying, smart as hell, kick-ass, effective assassin that is as good as Bond is, if not better. That's what I want from that new character. And if they do that, that character could be kick-ass, and I would love to see that. You know, make it cool.
Yeah,
That's the only way it's going to work.
Yeah. You know, and I hope if they introduce a new 007 and it's her, I hope the first thing we see, and if she doesn't die in the pre-title sequence, I hope we see her in bed with somebody. I hope she's an unrepentant drinker. Maybe she smokes cigarettes. She drives fast cars. She's not going to be exactly like Bond, but do it in a way what's the female equivalent of James Bond?
Yeah.
You don't want her doing just what a male Bond would do, but what is the female equivalent of Bond? What would a female do who's got the pressure that her life might end at any day? I don't think that character is going to go buy shoes or go shopping. She's a 00. She's going to lead a life that she's probably going to be more like Jessica Jones is. You know, and Jessica Jones, man, she sees Mike Coulter. She sees a power man. You know, Mike Coulter's a beautiful man. And Jessica Jones unrepentantly slept with him, and she's a hard drinker, and she's a partier because she knows she's already been violated. She leads that life, and she doesn't make apologies as to who she is or why she does what she does. I want to see a character like that, the female equivalent of James Bond. Don't turn her into some, well, let's talk about our feelings. No, she's a killer. She's an assassin. She lives life on the edge where she's got to be all the time. What's the female equivalent of that? Show me that, and make her kick ass.
Have you seen Red Sparrow? Because I was like thinking, yeah, that would be a workable female.
Yeah,
alternative.
exactly like Red
Sparrow.
Yes, exactly like that. Or Atomic
I
Blonde.
like that movie, by the way. I know not many people do, but I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a dark. Yes, but that's what a 00 is.
Yeah,
male or female, whatever color, whatever creed, whatever race, whatever your sexuality, whatever. I mean, hell, they could make her gay. And if there's a gay 007, fine with me, as long as like have her, you know, multiple partners and she's unrepentant about her sexuality. Because why? She could die tomorrow. She doesn't have time to worry about your feelings. She's only interested in hers. Fuck yeah.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, that's the attitude I get from the fans is like, why would you do? And then you're just going to do what we've seen happen a million times over if you do change that. And that is you're going to alienate your core fan base. And in this world where, you know, our attentions are so spread over so many things and short, you're not going to gain any ground with that. What are you going to gain? What are you going to gain? We've seen this happen and play out in so many different. The biggest franchise of all time is basically on a ledge right now because they've tried this with it. You know, I mean, to the point where you've alienated so many main fans of Star Wars and Star Trek and all these big franchises. You do it to Bond. I mean, that's going to be like one of the last, you know, Hollywood establishments that's just going to crumble.
It depends on the execution, though.
Right,
I think that James
If
Bond
you do it like they
25
were just saying, it'd be okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, do it Red Sparrow, but again, they're giving this a Me Too makeover. It's not going to get the Red Sparrow treatment. That's what it should be getting, but it's not going to get that. However, I still think that James Bond 25 is going to do huge numbers, if nothing else, for the curiosity factor. Now, if James Bond 26 does similar numbers, that's of course an entirely different matter.
Yeah. I just hope that I have not liked the last two Bond films, and I loved True Detective Season 1. And the fact that we have the director from True Detective Season 1 directing this film, despite all of its problems, I think this movie's, I have huge hopes. I have very high hopes for this movie. And I hope it's great. And I desperately want it to be great. I'm flying to England. I'm going to see Bond 25 at the Odeon Cinema in Leicester Square. And I want it to kick ass.
Yeah, I want it to be good too. So let's just hope for the best here. That's all I have to say on the matter. I just hope that they know what they're doing, which I know may be hoping for much, but I hope for the best for this. And with that, I want to thank, first of all, the panel, especially you, Robert Meyer Burnett, for joining us. You're always welcome.
Huge treat when you get to join us. Yes.
Oh, well, thank you. Look, I have fun doing these. It's great. It's a pleasure for me. I appreciate being invited.
And with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone and have a great day.
If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a comment, like it, and help share it. Or if you didn't, tell us why in the comments. If you did enjoy it, then feel free to subscribe, but remember to hit the bell icon to select that you want notifications all the time, otherwise YouTube might randomly unsubscribe you. Midnight's Edge is completely independent and devoted to bringing you the intelligent analysis of the inner workings of the film industry and genre media. If you like what we do, then we would be very grateful if you could help us keep the lights on by supporting us on Patreon or on Subscribestar. Our backers receive exclusive rewards and bonuses. Before you go, check out these other videos that may interest you, and our sister channel Midnight's Edge After Dark for more live shows and more laid-back content.